The Four Horsemen, hour 2 of 2. This is a part 2 reaction to this. Part 1 should be in the description. Discussions with Richard Dawkins, of course, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, Daniel Dennett. These four minds are talking about some of the most interesting discussions right now pertaining to the current faith versus science kind of dilemma from the atheist side. So you're getting to hear it, what atheists are thinking, and especially since they're the minority, of course, overall, and in terms of the majority, people believe in things, believe in gods, believe in something that gives them, I don't know, some kind of coping with the world we live in and the one to come that they claim exists. So let's see where this continues. They left off with Christopher Hitchens practically saying, you know, he doesn't think he can get everybody to clearly let go of faith for evolutionary reasons, Freudian reasons, that, you know, extinction and natural reasons why people would still hold on to these things. But at the end of the day, he wouldn't want them to probably all go away anyway, because then the debate and the argument would not, you know, continue. And he learns a lot from the dialectical approach of learning from his opponents. Now, let's see where this conversation continues to go.
Because you could have said the same thing about witchcraft at some point in recent history. You could say that every culture has had a belief in witches, a belief in the efficacy of magic spells. Witchcraft is ubiquitous, and we're never going to get rid of it, and we're fools to try. Or we can try only as a matter of dialectic. But witchcraft is going to be with us. Well, and yet witchcraft has almost without exception. I mean, you can find certain communities
not
where
at all.
No, I mean, real witchcraft
is completely ineradicable. It spreads like weed, often under animist and Christian.
No, I don't mean
not in the Western world.
I mean frank witchcraft. Witchcraft of the evil eye, and instead of medicine, you have.
You think you've got rid of that?
I think we've got. fundamentally, we've got rid of that. Yes.
In any case, don't you want to get rid of it? I mean,
I think Christopher's right here. I really think, especially with social media, now I'm connected even more than I think they were when they had this discussion. And I'm seeing so many people who still believe in magic and witchcraft and sorcery and all sorts of stuff.
So there's currently a campaign to get Wiccans registered to be buried in Arlington Cemetery.
But Wiccans are to witchcraft as Unitarians are.
Right. They're not real. I'm talking about a willingness to kill your neighbor because you think that there is some causal mechanism by which they, through their evil intent, could have destroyed your crops psychically, you know, or cast an evil eye upon your. I mean, it comes in ignorance of medical science. I mean, you don't know why people get sick, and you suspect your neighbor of ill intent, and then witchcraft fills the void there.
No, one wouldn't say in such a case that one wished to be. One didn't wish to be with that.
I do think that we've come a long ways where now that we know more about the world scientifically, even if people believe in some of that stuff, I think Sam's point is that they have toned it down compared to the ancient world where if your donkey died, you'd blame your neighbor because you think they didn't like you and they set a curse on your donkey or something. Like now they got to kill their neighbor for it. And it's like, okay, we, for the most part, I think almost, there may be some tribes, you know, that are untouched or are secluded from the rest of the world that continue these behaviors. But overall, I think that we have won that battle, right?
Okay. We've lost something.
But we are effectively. I mean, we're not dealing with the claims of witches intruding upon medical. Don't go to alternative medicine and acupuncture here. I'm talking about real witchcraft.
Well, I was about to do that very thing. And the Washington Post publishes horoscopes every day.
Astrology is yet another matter.
But astrology is a.
Let's take a moderate. Astrology is not going to be eradicated.
But it doesn't need to be eradicated.
No, but you're confusing whether it's going to be eradicated and whether you want it to be eradicated. And it sounds as though you don't want it to be eradicated because you want something to argue against and something to sharpen your wits.
I think that is, in fact, what I...
But in fact, instead of thinking about eradication, why not think about it the way an evolutionary epidemiologist would and say, what we want to do is we want to encourage the evolution of a virulence. We want to get rid of the harmful kinds. And I mean, I don't care about astrology. I don't think it's harmful enough. I mean, it was a little scary when Reagan was reportedly using astrology to make decisions. But that, I hope, anomalous case aside, I find the superstition that astrology is important to be relatively harmless. If we could only do the same thing, if we could only relegate the other enthusiasms to the status of astrology, I'd be happy.
Right. Yeah, so again, I like Dennett's answer here personally. I don't want to keep their stronghold strong, so I had something to argue against, and I don't think that ultimately Hitchens does either. I don't want to strawman him. But Dennett's approach is more like, let's nudge the evolutionary process of how humans are. Let's go along with the progress, right? Let's try to tame the beast, at least in some ways. We can still have other things to argue about, but maybe Christopher Hitchens was such an arguer about these things that he didn't want to let go of that combat that he was experiencing through debate.
Well, look, you don't accept or you don't like my answer, but I think the question is going to be asked of us. It was asked of me today, actually, again on the TV. Said, do you wish no one was going to church this morning in the United States?
Right.
What's your answer?
Well, I've given mine. Richard's disagreed a bit. The answer I gave this morning was, I think people would be much better off without false consolation, and I don't want them trying to inflict their beliefs on me. So they'd be doing themselves and me a favor if they gave it up. So perhaps in that sense, I contradict myself. I mean, I wish they would stop it, but then I would be left with no one to argue with. And
Christopher Hitchens is so funny, and Richard Dawkins is thinking so like methodical here, and he's just like, dude, what the heck, man? Do you want it or not? You know what I mean? And at least you're hearing the honest heart of Christopher Hitchens. Like, I want to be able to debate with these guys, but I want them to not keep doing this. But I want them to keep doing this, but I want them to not.
You have many other subjects.
And I certainly didn't say that I thought if they'd only listened to me, they would stop going. Okay, so there are two questions here. So that was my very experimental answer. But I'd love to hear, would you like to say that you look forward to a world when no one had any faith in
I want to answer this. Whether it's astrology or religion or anything else, I want to live in a world where people think skeptically for themselves, look at evidence, not because astrology is harmful. I guess it probably isn't harmful, but if you go through the world thinking that it's okay to just believe things because you believe them without evidence, then you're missing so much. And it's such a wonderful experience to live in the world and understand why you're living in the world and understand what makes it work, understand about the real stars, understand about astronomy, that it's an impoverishing thing to be reduced to the pettiness of astrology. And I think you can say the same of religion. The universe is a grand, beautiful, wonderful place. And it's petty and parochial and cheapening to believe in jinns and supernatural creators and supernatural interferers. I think you could make an aesthetic case that you want to.
Oh, fine. I could not possibly agree with you more.
But let's talk about priorities.
Okay.
If we could just get rid of some of the most pernicious and noxious excesses, what would be the triumphs you would go for first? What would really thrill
Sam Harris would say Islam
you as an objective reached? Let's look at Islam. And let's look at Islam.
I already knew it was going there.
As realistically as we can. Is there any remote chance of a reformed, reasonable Islam?
Well, isn't the present savage Islam actually rather recent? Isn't it the Wahhabi?
You have to go back quite a ways, I think, to get
only up to a point. I mean, I think there's, and again, none of us are whether we're equipped to do it, we're not the most persuasive mouthpieces of this criticism. I mean, it takes someone like Ayaan Hirsi Ali or a Muslim scholar, someone like Ibn Waraq, to authentically criticize Islam and have it be heard by people, but especially the secular liberals of the sort who don't trust our take on this. But it seems to me you have different historical moments in the history of Islam that are distinct. One where Islam really has, you have some Muslim, you have a caliphate, or you have some Muslim country which has a reign of Islam and is unmolested, but for whatever period of time from the outside, and then Islam can be as totalitarian and happy with itself as possible, and you don't see the inherent conflict and the inherent liability of its creed. I mean, Samuel Huntington said Islam has bloody borders. It's at the borders that we're noticing this problem, and the borders of Islam and modernity at this moment, the conflict between Islam and modernity. But you can find instances in the history of Islam where people weren't running around waging jihad because they had successfully waged jihad.
Yeah. But then what about women?
Exactly, the suffering of women within those borders.
Even in the best.
Yeah, this is a great point. So, correct me if I'm wrong, you observers watching today, you awesome, brilliant minds. What Sam is suggesting is that once the war has already taken place, they've already conquered a land, they've become the totalitarian rulers of this land. Within that bubble, now that everyone is under the same regime, under the same faith, let's just suppose, this is not necessarily the case. You know, some who may claim to be Christian have to pay taxes. Jews may have to pay tax. There may be a way of a treatment of people underneath this umbrella that somehow becomes sustainable to some extent. But even within that, the treatment of women, within that pocket, without the blood at the borders, you have the women and their treatment within these societies that are crying out, seeing the world outside, seeing how the Western world allows the freedom and liberties of women to be how they want to be, to act how they want to act. This goes for men too, by the way. I mean, it's not just women, it's men and women. They're allowed to behave, to express themselves in whatever manner they feel necessary to do in a free country. Not okay in Islam, not okay in a Muslim-ruled country. That is scary.
But there's obviously some kind of syncretism, and we know quite a lot now. There have been some wonderful books, Maria Menoukal's book on Andalusia, for example, on periods where Islamic civilization was relatively at peace with its neighbors and doing a lot of work of its own on matters that were not jihadist. And I saw myself during the wars in post-Yugoslavia that the Bosnian Muslims behaved far better than the Christians, either Catholic or Orthodox, and were the victims of religious massacre, not the perpetrators of them, and were the ones who believed the most in multiculturalism. So it can happen. You could even meet people who said they were atheist Muslims or Muslim atheists, or Muslim secularists in Sarajevo. You could, yeah. Which is a technical impossibility. But the problem is this, whether we think, as I certainly very firmly do believe, that totalitarianism is innate in all religion, because it has to want an absolute, unchallengeable, eternal authority.
In all religion.
Must be so. The creator whose will our comments on his will are unimportant. You know, his will is absolute. Cannot be challenged, and applies after we're dead as well as before we're born. That is the origin of totalitarianism. I think Islam states that in the most alarming way, in that it comes as the third of the monotheisms and says nothing further is required.
Right.
This is the last. There have been previous words from God. We admit that. We don't claim to be exclusive, but we do claim to be final. Yeah. There's no need for any further work on this point.
And we do claim that there's no distance between theology and
in our world, surely the worst thing anyone can say is no further inquiry is needed. Right. You've already got all you need to know. All else is commentary. It's the most sinister and dangerous thing. And that is a claim that Islam makes that others don't quite make in the same way.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a moment on that.
There's no refutation of Islam in Christianity or Judaism. But there is in Islam. Let's say we accept all the bad bits of Judaism. We love Abraham and his sacrifice of his son, or willingness to sacrifice. Yeah. We love all that. We absolutely esteem the virgin birth, the most nonsensical bits of Christianity. We think, all that's great. You're all welcome to join, but we have the final word.
Right.
That's deadly.
Yes.
And I think our existence is incompatible with that preaching.
What do you think about what he just said there? And now, devil advocate is coming here. Daniel Dennett is about to bring it. And I'm curious to hear what his reaction is going to be. So we're going to hear that. But what do you think about what Christopher Hitchens just said?
Let me just play devil's advocate for a moment, so at least we're clear what the position is.
I'd rather speak for the devil pro bono myself.
Well, okay. We can all speak for the devil. I'm sure a lot of people think we're doing just that. I, for one, think that the fact that something is true is not quite sufficient for spreading it about or for trying to discover it. The idea that there's things we should just not try to find out is an idea that I take seriously. And I think we at least have to examine the proposition that there's such a thing as knowing more than is good for us. Now, if you accept that so far,
just think about something as an example. I'm thinking of like a chemical weapon or a biological weapon that could be used to literally eradicate the extinction, if you will, of human beings. That we can come up with something that is incurable and that we're capable of spreading that. And I'm sure that there are people who've already discovered this kind of stuff, that it is the most contagious and yet the most fatal to all of humankind and will go extinct. Should we know that? Should we know how to make that? Should we avoid that path at all costs? Yes. It's kind of scary that we are at a place where that's possible. Or the idea of bombs and these kinds of things. Used on other humans, right? So it's like, ooh, this is intense.
Then a possibility we have to take seriously, even when we reject it, we should reject it having taken it seriously, is the Muslim idea that indeed the West has simply gone way too far, that there is lots of, this is knowledge that's not good for us, it's knowledge that we were better off with that, and the fact that many Muslims would like to turn the clock back, they can't, of course. But I have a certain sympathy for a Muslim who says, well, yeah, the cat's out of the bag, it's too late, it's a tragedy. You in the West have exposed truths to yourselves, and now you're forcing them on us, that the species would be better off not knowing.
I'm absolutely riveted by what you say. I'd really love an instance in theory or practice of something you think we could know but could forbid ourselves to know.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know, because Daniel's talking about something. I'd like to know what he means. I came up with 2 examples: nuclear weaponry, like that can kill us, or biological weaponry.
Because that is harder for me to imagine a world without faith.
Well, you brought up the bell curve. I mean, if there were reliable differences in intelligences between races or species,
but I don't think any of us here do think that that's the case. I mean, I think there must be something. You must have thought of something you could believe, but wish you didn't know.
Oh, I don't think it's hard to dream up things which, if they were true, it might be better for the human race to go on not knowing them.
But could you concretize it just a little more? Yeah. I'm completely.
The hypothetical is one thing, but Christopher's asking: Do you actually have you ever suppressed something?
No, I haven't.
No.
Can you imagine yourself doing so? By the way, I mean, I can't.
Oh, I can imagine it. I hope it never comes up.
Well, take the synthesizing of bioweapons. I mean, should nature publish the code for smallpox, where you can just, within his lab can.
There's all those.
So it's kind of funny. I was being predictive there.
Oh well, all right. But that wouldn't be a knowledge of which we should remain innocent.
Well,
that would be an ability. That would be more like a capacity.
I think with foresight, it's certainly you can conceive of a circumstance where someone can seek knowledge, the only conceivable application of which would be unethical, or the dissemination of which would put power in the wrong hands. Or,
yes.
I mean, but actually, you brought up something which I think is crucial here, because it's not so much the spread of the wrong of seditious truths to Islam or the rest of the world that I think we're guilty of in the eyes of our opponents. It's the not honoring of facts that are not easily quantified and easily discussed in science. I mean, the classic retort to all of us is, prove to me that you love your wife. I mean, as though this is a knockdown argument against atheism. You can't prove it. Well, if you unpack that a little bit, you can prove it. You can demonstrate it. We know what we mean by love. But there is this domain of the sacred that is not easily captured by science, and scientific discourse has really ceded it to religious discourse.
Yeah.
Well, and artistic discourse.
Yeah,
which is
yes.
not religious necessarily.
But I would argue it's not even well captured by art necessarily. There's something in the same way that love is not really well captured by art, and compassion is not. Well, I mean, you can represent it in art, but it's not reducible to. You don't go into the museum and find compassion in its purest form. And I think there's something about the way we, as atheists, merely dismiss the bogus claims of religious people that convinces religious people that there's something we're missing. And I think we have to be sensitive to this.
Absolutely.
Dude, Sam's touching something here. Really good. I want to hear Christopher's thing before we wrap this up.
That's why they bring up, what about when has secularism ever built anything like Durham Cathedral, or Chartres, or devotional painting, or the music of
But I think we have answers to that. I think we have answers to that. I mean, and you provide a very good answer to that. If there was secular patronage of the arts at that point, then we can't know that Michelangelo was actually a believer, because the consequences of professing your unbelief in that case was death.
I think it's because as we're picking these religions apart and they identify with them, they feel threatened and they feel like it's an attack. And when you do that, they look at you like you're aggressive and you're angry and you're upset and you're trying to be mean, instead of a real compassionate human who's trying to empathize and really trying to say, look, I feel all the things that you feel. We share the same deep, profound experiences in this life together. You think that science can't touch those things, and those things have to remain within the sacred bounds of God, divinity, consciousness, whatever. Whereas I think we can look at them through a scientific lens, but also still appreciate them through an experiential aspect. And I don't need to give that experiential over to a divinity or to the gods or to, some special thing. I think as conscious agents, that is where the magic happens. And so we should find common ground and not only dissect the dumb things that we find within religion, meaning dumb as in ignorant, definitely not literally happened, virgins did not give birth, these kinds of things. If you believe that literally, you're clearly holding on to backward, superstitious kind of ideas. And I think we could do both a better job. And I think Sam's trying to hit that on the head, whereas it's easy to tear down another person's view and not try to humanize the other side and to humanize yourself in the process, because it's easy to be attack and not show the heart and the kindness and gentleness that we have. Because I think every person on the panel, including ourselves watching, who may agree with these guys, can probably agree that, hey, we haven't done the best job of showing that side while we're making these cases, so analytical, so scientific, so factual, but where is that humanity? Where is that, the profound music? Why don't we talk about how the music hits? Those things, I think a lot of people are going to hold on to religion because those things don't get touched upon as they should by leading critical people of the religions. Anyway, tell me if you think I'm right. That wraps up this video, part 2 of the second hour of Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, the Four Horsemen of atheism. I really want to hear your thoughts, and be sure to subscribe and check the bell. If you do not check the bell and hit all, you will not get notified of my upcoming reactions. It's just the way YouTube works. So make sure you take that extra step. Please like this video, share it out there. Liking it also gains attention and helps this channel grow. We sincerely appreciate you. I want to see your recommendations, and until next time, see you then.